that shot of her going on her knees and genuinely saying it, and like there were like tears welling up in her eyes, and like people got emotional on set. I remember our assistant stunt coordinator like was like, I cried while watching from the monitor, and I was like, I guess there's more to this scene, you know, like, and I do think it like.
What's happening? Hi, how are you?
Hi, Greta. Nice to meet you. We're good. We're good. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm really excited to have a chance to talk with you about this movie. And I know that it has been a long road since the premiere. So thank you very much for your time and your patience and all of that things. So
thank you for spreading the word about our movie. So we're very appreciative. So thank you.
Well, it's a great movie. You know, it's like impossible not to recommend this kind of movies. So I would like to start with, there are a lot of conversation in this movie because that's the human experience, you know, a lot of things. But I think that in the middle of the chaos of modern life, there are two interesting conversations, and one of which is motherhood and the misunderstandings of motherhood. You know, how we used to put in different universes the idea of a woman and the ideal of a mother, you know. And when we think about a mother, it is related to pain, to unconditional love, and sacrifice, you know. A mother needs to sacrifice herself, her aspirations, her dreams, her body. So I would like to know if that makes sense to you, considering this movie, obviously Evelyn's character and her relationship with Joy. But I would like to know what do you think about that, but because I think that it's like a main theme in the movie and we need to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for saying all that. 100% agree. I think one of the reasons why we were drawn to this character and making a sci-fi action movie starring a mother was because we both grew up with very strong mothers. Like our moms are just very opinionated, very strong-willed, very hardworking. I've never seen someone work harder than my mom. And so this is a movie about a human being who is stretched thin because everything around them is demanding something of them, which is, I think, something that anyone can relate with. Like everyone living right now can relate with the fact that their attention is being pulled in every direction and that everyone feels like they're being stretched thin. But I especially think immigrant mothers have this very strange thing of having to hold together their family, hold together their business, sometimes businesses, you know, plural, hold together their past and their parents and their children, and the whole thing just becomes almost impossible and untenable. And that's where we wanted our movie to start, even before we got to the multiverse. You know, Evelyn and maybe a lot of mothers are already in the multiverse. They're already in so many different worlds and so many different headspaces. And that,
we talked a lot about like the opening of the film, her having to code switch between, and she literally switches languages between being a wife and being a daughter and being a mother and being like the business owner or being a service industry representative who's talking to customers. And then for a moment you get to see her as herself, you know, and that was such a fun thing to do with the character, and it made me look at my mom differently and look at like parenting differently, to kind of like have to put ourselves in those shoes and think about those challenges and sacrifices. Yeah.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns.
And the other conversation that I think it's important, and maybe we need to blame TV and movies, is how we believe our sexual identity defines us as a whole. You know, when we watch a character that is part of the LGBT community, everything revolves around his, her, their sexuality. You know, if a man is gay, he is gay, and that's all, you know. But in this movie, a character like Joy is more than that. Of course, her queerness is part of her identity, but she's not her queerness, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. So that's why at the end of the movie, when Evelyn and Joy talk, we are at the beginning of something else. It's not the end, you know, because acceptance, it's not at the end of the road, it's just the beginning. So I think that Joy, it's such a great character, but the way that you write this character, I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was always something that was really important to that character, was making sure that if there is a wedge between Evelyn and Joy, it's not just the fact that she is gay. There's so much more to it. And so even though, that is such an important part of her identity, it's not the summation, it's not everything to her. And we kind of, that came out when we were writing it, you know, the moment when Evelyn, Michelle's character, confronts her father and introduces Becky, Joy's girlfriend, to her father. You know, in a normal movie, I think that would have been the end. That would have been the reconciliation. It's like, oh, finally, I accept you for being a lesbian who is in a loving relationship with another woman. And that felt wrong to us. And so, you know, I think some people who watch the movie think there's maybe too many endings, which is, but I think to me that felt like the last final step. It was like, okay, we're slowly allowing Evelyn to see every piece see and accept every piece of Joy, and that was just one final step before we get to the parking lot where they can finally just talk as two humans, not as a mother who is too conservative to accept her gay daughter. It's two humans who just have had a really hard time to see each other in general through all the noise. And so that felt like a really important beat that wasn't always there. That was something that we added in later drafts that kind of fully allowed Joy to be more than just her queer identity.
I appreciate your interpretation of the movie. It's what we hoped for, you know. But it reminds me of one of our screenwriter friends has a pet peeve where movies have a character suddenly find out something in their past that made them the way they are, and it's like, oh well, there was that car crash, or there was that one time that you know, their favorite toy, you know, fell out of the school bus, and oh, that's why they're a serial killer. And I feel like it applies to so much more than just the queer community, that movies can be super reductive and be like, this character is now defined by this one aspect of them. And I understand as a filmmaker how tempting that is, you know, and it's hard to not succumb to just like shortcuts of just like, you know, we got to explain why this superhero wants to save the world. Let's have them have a fight with their dad. But I think it's a slippery, it's dangerous. You can end up like oversimplifying humans if you're just like, they are defined by this one thing, their sexuality or their, you know, peg leg. Just try to list off different kinds of characters.
It's really good.
No, and I was trying to explain the movie to a friend, and I decided to describe a scene that I think it's beautiful, you know, and it's when Evelyn and Jamie Lee Curtis' character are fighting. You know, Evelyn needs to say, I love you, and feel love for someone who is attacking her even before the multiverse idea and all this concept, you know, and I think that it's beautiful because we can say the words, but loving someone or something, it's not that easy, of course. And now in the digital era and with the internet and social media, we are conscious of the existence of so many things, but at the same time, we know so little and we don't get to know people that deep, you know? So it's harder to love because love requires patience and time, you know? And it seems that we don't have time. Evelyn doesn't have time, you know? She's always like in a rush, you know? So I would like to know, what do you think about that scene? And what you were trying to say with that scene, because I think that it's like the essence of the movie. You know, it can like not resume the movie because it's a lot, but it's like a great example and a great example to explain the movie.
It was that's almost the setup or the precursor to the finale when, you know, Wayman comes in and says like we have to be kind, we have to be understanding, and then eventually she goes on her empathy fight, we call it. It's her empathy fight where she uses her powers to understand instead of powers to destroy. And so that we knew that's where we wanted the movie to end up, and so we thought it would be really interesting if we set that up at the very beginning. Almost, it starts off as a joke, almost, where, you know, she has to do the most probable, you know, improbable action she can, like they can think of, to jump to another universe. And then in that moment, the most improbable thing is to love your enemy, to love someone. You know, basically, you know, it's very biblical. Love your enemy, turn the other cheek. And so it just felt like a really fun way to just introduce this idea, tease it as a joke almost, so that you're thinking about this thing, you're thinking about the impossibility of loving someone that you don't understand or even refuse to understand. I think that's even harder. It's not that we don't understand each other. Sometimes the harder thing is we don't even want to understand each other. And so if we thought if we tease that early on, then, you know, the brain would be ready for the finale, when, you know, kindness kind of takes over the rest of the film. But yeah, it works on multiple levels, because not only is she attacking her from another universe, but she's also the auditor who is making her life a miserable existence. And we just thought, as an empathy challenge, having to love your auditor just seemed like probably one of the hardest things you could ever ask of a person.
I remember when we shot that scene, you know, I thought of it as more of a joke, just like, oh, this would be very hard to say I love you to someone who's trying to kill you. And Michelle took it so seriously. And when we photographed that shot of her going on her knees and genuinely saying it, and like there were like tears welling up in her eyes, and like people got emotional on set. I remember our assistant stunt coordinator like was like, I cried while watching from the monitor, and I was like, I guess there's more to this scene, you know, like, and I do think it, like, the joke gets at something about, you know, how hard it is but how important it is to pull love out of yourself. That, like, how powerful that can be like, I'm just gonna love.
Every disappointment has led you here to this moment.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for this movie. For real, it's amazing. So thank you very much for everything, and hope to see you soon, you know, with a new movie, with a new music video, whatever. We need you.
We'll try to hurry up.
We need you in the industry.